Hello and welcome to this podcast, which is part of a series called Inventing Embodiment. My name is Jonathan Burrows. I'm a choreographer and also a faculty member at the Centre for Dance Research at Coventry University. Last year, my colleagues at CDARE met online once a week to talk, and the conversation kept coming back to the question of how we speak about embodiment. This podcast aims to capture some of the research I was fortunate to hear then. My guest this morning is Ruth Gibson, who is a dance scholar at CDARE. Welcome, Ruth.
Hello, Jonathan.
Perhaps you can start, Ruth, by saying a little bit about what you're researching or working on at the moment.
Of course. I'm a certified teacher in skinner releasing technique and a choreographer and visual artist and reader at CDARE. And currently, I'm working with dance and movement, motion capture and virtual reality. And there are 3 projects on the go at the moment. I'm working on an interactive machine learning project devising with gestural input for interactive virtual reality. I'm leading an interdisciplinary network using the micro-phenomenological interview to uncover memories of dance experience from both maker and audience. And I'm developing a location-based participatory mixed reality performance where audiences can enter a virtual reality world and meet their avatar and dancer avatars and be in both the physical and virtual place at the same time, 2 or more places at once.
I'm very intrigued by this process of recovery of dance memory for the doer and for the watcher. Can you tell me a little bit how that works?
Yes. I've been working with scholar and dancer Jenny Roach from University of Limerick using the micro-phenomenological interview technique, which taps into experience really, similar in a way to the repetitions that appear in the scripting in skinner releasing techniques. And through this method, we dig deep into what the performer might be thinking in the moment of the making. Often what and how a dancer is feeling is often overlooked in the moment of the making. So it might be memories, colours, shapes, writings, anything that is in this recall in the studio, we have been jotting down and then making worlds in virtual reality so that the audience can enter the dance in this different way to receive the feelings of those experiences from the dancers.
So the description microphenomenology is about taking previously overlooked signals, feelings and thoughts and using them to reconnect with a memory or an experience that had happened in the past. Have I got that right?
A little bit. I guess it's more about the notion of getting closer, what it means to experience, because I think a lot of us, when we talk about experience, and in a way the same as embodiment, we use it in sweeping brushstrokes really.
Yeah.
And the micro-phenomenological interview, it not only really looks at the what, it also looks at the how as well. So it's really trying to dig deeper. And so the repetitions are these, micro incremental steps towards actually getting to that point.
And you mentioned that this had a connection to the way that Skinner technique uses image repetitions. Can you just explain a little bit what that is?
I think in some ways you do the interviews one-to-one, whereas in a Skinner class it's obviously with many more, students. With a teacher and maybe 10 to 20 students. But the scripting, often Joan uses haikus or haiku-like sort of image clusters, and often in these it's like poetry, but there's a kind of like a repetition or like a song where the repetition allows, if you're going to this sort of alpha state or this unconscious, that actually if you miss anything you kind of catch it again, if you wander off or you drift off.
Right.
And I think this is in the microphenomenological interview, it's almost like you're repeating what the interviewee is saying, you're repeating it back to them And so there's this sort of feedback loop, it kind of lands. It means that these particular things land just like they would in a Skinner class.
And do they land as a feeling or as an emotion or as a memory or as a combination of those things?
I think possibly a combination of those things.
So that leads me on to my next question. It might seem obvious to ask you about embodiment in relation to what you've just described, but the purpose of these podcasts is to, in a way, give a kind of overview of many different perspectives and the specificity of those perspectives on embodiment in relation to particular approaches. Is there anything you can say about the particular aspects of embodiment that are thrown up by this work, both in virtual reality but also in this idea of recovering memory of movement?
I think notions of embodiment and agency can be really changed and altered when makers and performers and audiences engage with interactive technologies, to be honest.
Right.
And virtual reality and augmented reality and extended reality, and also some of the processes to make that, has this sort of close coupling between sensation, perception and action, with both the physical world and the digital computational processes. And so, again, in a kind of feedback loop.
And is the idea of virtual reality not in some way contradictory to the idea of embodiment?
It might be to some people. I mean, embodiment, personal awareness, participation and control of our bodies underpins everything we do as humans. So we can't move or act in the world without understanding ourselves as embodied beings. And we're continually doing that, and we don't realise really our capacities, our sort of perceptual, sensory motor capacities for doing that. New sensations and new or awakening, maybe dormant, things that have laid dormant in us by working with virtual reality, gives us access to this other notion of what embodiment is. It's funny because a long while ago with my partner and collaborator Bruno Martelli, we coined the term out-of-body embodiment, which sounds a bit clumsy.
Right.
But it came out through our experiences of working with game engines and virtual reality and so on, and where we were making player characters and non-player characters and observing things like teleporting and being able to jump into another body, for example, or conjuring feelings that the body has left you, or seeing yourself ahead of you, and all these kinds of things. So embodied experience in this instance, and perhaps going back to your question about virtuality, is that in this instance you're seeing the world through an avatar, a first person perspective, and there's somehow an immediacy to this agency where your fleshy body meets the virtual world, and you become the story. You're not kind of viewing or listening to a story. So it's very similar to all our capacities as dancers sometimes when we're improvising, and the imagination and risk-taking. And of course, in virtual reality, you're risk-taking in a very safe place, in many ways.
So you've got these two areas of research at the moment, virtual reality and these microphenomenological interviews. Are they connected in some way, or in what way do they connect for you?
I'm really sort of in the thick of it at the moment with it. I think one of the wonderful aspects of the interviewing method is that it uncovers interesting observations from the dancers' recall. And at the moment we're looking further into what that means to an audience, and to try and find that out, rather than the dance audience witnessing and watching. We're, in a way, trying to get sort of closer and into a different proximity. So in virtual reality, the audience can actually move around and be inside the dance, if that makes sense. So it's a wrapping around and meshing of these research areas at the moment. Heightening awarenesses and ideas of double presency, re-embodiment and fractal sense of embodiment, the disappearing and assembling body in these different worlds. And it reminds us of our place in the real world, that we can explore a different world too.
Thank you so much, Ruth, for taking me into this other world and for sharing those images and ideas from your research and how they throw a completely new light for me on ideas of embodiment. So thank you.
Thank you too. I hope you can experience one of my works one day.
Oh, yes, please.
That would be just brilliant to have your feedback.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.